Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Well, good morning. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for the 20th of December 2022. We do have apologies this morning, councillors. We have received apologies from Councillor Trevor and Councillor Muscat. Can I have a move that they be accepted, please? Thank you, Councillor Hanson and Councillor Goodluck. All in favour? Motion's carried. The next item on the agenda is messages of condolence. Can I start with Councillor Branthwaite? Message of condolence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
sorry, no, you're not. Sorry, I've got that wrong. It's Councillor. It's been a big week. Councillor O'Grady, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to send our condolences to Ghassan Sangari, had passed away earlier in the month. A lot of people know Ghassan as the kebab man. He did have Kebab Heaven, which he went to many different organisations around the place, non-profit groups and whatever else selling his kebabs. He originally came to Agnes Water, 1770 area, when he first came to the area, and had Latinos, and then he moved up here. So, yeah, so our condolences to the family and friends of Ghassan. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Grady. Councillor Hanson.
For Peter Churick. Sorry, for Peter Churick. Very sadly passed away last week. Peter Churick was born in Gladstone on the 10th of February 1951. Peter was one of two children with his sister Margaret and Aileen, his sister Margaret to Aileen and Godfrey Churick. The family lived on Auckland Hill during Peter's early years before moving to Glen Lyon Street. On trips out to Heidelberg, the family property, with Godfrey, Peter developed an affinity and a love of the land. Like his father, Peter had a passion for tennis and enjoyed success in the juniors, and as a result it was decided that he would move to Brisbane to complete year 11 and 12 and play tennis on the Brisbane circuit. He then attended Teachers College at Kelvin Grove. Peter took his first teaching placement at Gladstone West in 1970. It was also at that time that Peter started playing cricket, and he became a foundation member of the newly formed the Glen Cricket Club, a team that Peter captained to a record 7 consecutive A-grade premierships. Peter would later return to become principal of West School, which he was there for 15 years after spending time teaching at Clinton, Central, Boyne Island, South and Kincora schools. Peter met his future wife Judy from Bowen in August 1975. In December 1976, Peter and Judy were married and made their home on the family property at Benarabi. Peter and Judy had 6 children: Joanna, Louise, Andrea, Matthew, Peter and David. Many years were spent with the children at swimming, dancing, speech and drama, singing, estetfit, music, basketball, football and cricket, and I'm sure there were many other things. As the last of the children left home to pursue their careers, Peter decided to combine his 2 passions of property development and Heidelberg. In May 2012, earthworks commenced on Gladstone's largest residential development, known as Riverstone Rise. Peter retired as the principal of Gladstone West State School in 2012, closing the chapter on a 42-year career with the Education Department. He threw himself into that development, the cattle work, running the property, and travel and family commitments, including his 16 grandchildren. Peter was incredibly generous with his time, especially for those seeking his advice. His calm and thoughtful nature, coupled with his excellent communication skills, made him someone people gravitated to naturally. Peter always brought with him his positivity and happiness. He was a humble man who sought to live a simple life based on his faith and a well-calibrated moral compass. He was a statesman and a true gentleman. Our sincere condolences to Peter's passing, to Judy and the family, and may he rest in peace.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. I would like to pass a message of condolence for Uncle Richie Johnson. Uncle Richie passed away on the weekend, and I have permission from the family ahead of the funeral to have this message of condolence. So Uncle Richie was born in Gladstone in 1951 on the 16th of March. He grew up where the family home was, where Gladstone State High School is now. So that was their family property, and they were there for many years before they finally moved to Barney Point and moved into a commission house there where Auntie Jacqueline, his sister, still lives today. So it's been part of the family for a very long time. His brothers and sisters include Judith, Merle, as I said, Auntie Jackie, Velda, Lindsay, who passed away just recently, Auntie Julie, Neola and Marilyn. They're the ones I know, and there may be others, but they're the family members I know, and I know their family well. Our families are very close. And of course he has 3 daughters, Nonnie, Naomi and Annie. And I send our condolences to the girls today. They have 11 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. I think that's probably right. So his family connection to our community obviously go back generations. Uncle Richie was always participating in our Welcome to Country ceremonies and has participated in many events across the Gladstone region for many years, including the 1770 Festival, where the Garang play an important part in that as well. Uncle Richie was passionate about his culture and about his community, and made sure that the stories from his parents and his grandparents lived on through the next generation. And obviously, with all of his grandchildren, great-grandchildren spending a lot of time with him, he certainly has passed on that knowledge. He's joining his wife Morag now, who passed away in 1990. He raised those girls pretty much by himself when she passed away in the 1990s, and we send our deepest condolences to his family. I encourage everyone to watch the Our Priceless Past video, which Richie recorded just before he passed away. And I realise some people may be hearing this for the first time, and obviously it's a very sad time for our community. So thank you, councillors. May he rest in peace. The next item on the agenda is prior notifications of conflicts of interest.
Mayor Matt, would you mind if I said a few words
Absolutely,
of condolence
Sorry, Councillor.
and a tribute?
Absolutely, over
Would
to
you mind? Thank you. Just a tribute from the Gladstone Regional Council and all the communities of our region for the sad, sad deaths of two brave Queensland Police constables, brave officers, Constable Rachel McCrow and Constable Matthew Arnold, and also to include the community citizen, Alan Dare. Last week was a very, very dark day in the history of the Queensland Police Service, and can I just say on your behalf, and also in my volunteer capacity as the President of the Gladstone Region Retired Police Association and State Vice President ex officio, to hear of these sad tragedies to our brave Queensland police officers and members of the public is very tragic, it's very sad. And every officer and every worker deserves to go home safe and well and alive after their rostered duty. Every time we hear of these tragic incidents that occur, our emergency services personnel always reflect back on their own service and remember those close calls, and we thank them. And as every good law-abiding person would know, that if you hurt one, you touch or hurt most of us. Our prayers and deepest sympathies to their families, friends and their work colleagues of this civil war that seems to be emanating, cold, callous and calculated murderers. These brave officers' funeral service will be with full state honours and it'll be held tomorrow, if you're not aware. This is never good news at any time, especially before the festive season, especially the other ones as well. May they rest in peace, and could I say on your behalf today, as we go into the festive season, to all of our emergency services personnel, we really, really do thank them for what they do, and I can't emphasise this enough, for them to take care and stay safe, and may they rest in peace. So today is the opportunity for us as the Council to honour their bravery, a responsibility for us to remember, and to all to celebrate their lives. Thank you, Mayor Matt. Thank you, colleagues.
The next item on the agenda is prior notification of conflict. Do you have any prior notifications? No? Let's also move to the next item on the agenda, which is the Mayor's statement on current issues. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the mayoral statement on current issues, and I'm going to pass on that today and move to the next item, which is a confirmation of the minutes, G2.1, the confirmation of the general meeting minutes for the 6th of December 2022.
Happy to move, Mayor Matt. Thank you.
Councillor Churchill, seconded Councillor Branthwaite. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the officers' reports, and the first officers' report is G3.1, Public Art Proposal, Gladstone Aquatic Centre, and I'll hand over the General Manager of Community Development and Events, Acting Kim Markson. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, councillors, and good morning. Good morning to those watching online as well. Today's report is seeking council's endorsement of a public artwork to be installed at the Gladstone Aquatic Centre as part of the 25-metre pool and building renewal project. The artist was selected through an expression of interest process. 2 responses were received, one being from a Cairns-based artist and one from local First Nations artist Jared Beasley. An assessment panel assessed the responses and Jared Beasley was the successful respondent. The design has been shared with the Regional Arts Development Fund Committee as per the public art policy, with majority of the committee providing a positive recommendation to Council. The digital work will be printed on vinyl and installed on the inside of the 25-metre pool building. On the windows, the vinyl will cover the lower third of the windows to allow for natural light to still come in. Should Council endorse the recommendation today, installation is scheduled for early 2023. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kim. Questions to the General Manager, please? Councillor Branthwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kim, the actual, will it be viewed from the inside or the outside?
Yeah, so it will be viewed from the inside.
Okay, because those windows can be seen from the main pool area too, couldn't they not?
Possibly, yes. Yeah, so we can explore options for a double-sided.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's just, I was interested when I saw the layout. I thought, just wonder whether it's to be viewed from outside or inside, but inside makes sense too.
Yeah.
Jared's work is always very, very good. It's themed on the Boyne River too, a lot of the time. It's very, very good. It's nice to see a local artist. Congratulations. Congratulations to Jared as well.
Yeah, and we will accompany the work with the artist statement so that we're also sharing the story.
Cool. Very cool.
Councillor Hanson. Thank you. I have a mover in Councillor Hanson, second in Councillor O'Grady. I actually have a question. Could we go back to the slide of the windows, please? The pool works really well, and I love the artwork, really do. Can you tell me, is it that light coming into that pool is one of the features that make it work so well? How are we going to, what's the effect of the artwork on the light?
Yeah, so it will dim it a little bit. However, that's why we've gone with the lower third, to make sure that there is more light than artwork still coming through the window.
Okay, all right. And is it a type of artwork, because it's usually the dot, is it something that can be, the light can come through, or does it only completely black out that panel?
Yeah, so it is a printed vinyl, which does allow a little bit of light through, similar to what you might see on the doors at the entertainment centre.
Okay, all right, thanks. I do love the artwork. I just, the pool works very well with that light coming in through there. So, okay, I've moved in a second. Any other comments or questions? Put the motion, all in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you, Kim. The next item on the agenda is G3.2, which is the First Nations Cultural Burn Services Specialised Suppliers. And I hand over to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes. Thank you, Mark.
Morning, Mayor. Morning, councillors. First item for me today is with respect to entering into a specialised supply services for a number of First Nations groups that offer cultural burning services to council. We've appointed a First Nations officer to help us with our burns and working through that. So this is about how we outwork that. So for your consideration there is the endorsement of 4 service providers to help us in bringing that to life.
Questions to General Manager? Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. This officer, is he going to work in conjunction with QFS and our rural fireys?
Yeah, so he works with all those. Yeah, so QFS as well. So so there's they've got a fire management group that operates across the region that they're a part of. So yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Have a mover, please. Councillor Goodluck, second to Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Motion's carried. Councillors, I'd like to defer the next item to the January meeting if possible, please. I'm happy to move that way. Second and Councillor Churchill. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That's deferred. The next item on the agenda is G3.4, which is the repeal of the playground policy, and I'll hand back to Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of an ongoing review of our policies and corporate standards, we've had a look at our current playground policy. With the playground policy that we're proposing at this stage be removed was essentially adopted in 2014. It essentially contains a number of very much reiteration of Australian standards, design guidelines and other principles that are within our other planning schemes and other instruments and other essentially design guidelines that exist for our region. So at this point it's proposed that we essentially repeal that policy.
Okay. When it says first adopted in 2014, I thought it was much earlier than that. I thought that might have been when it was amended, but I'll go with that. I remember the policy because it was mostly around rubber softball at the time. But anyway, I just want to make sure that we continue to use the rubber softball. I notice a lot more parks popping up with the wood chip all around the place, and I get it, we've got to mix it up a bit.
Yep.
But I certainly do like the rubber softball. It's a lot safer for kids. Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is quite relevant to part of my report that I've got later on the agenda. When I went to the Parks and Leisure Congress down in Melbourne, they spoke about, Kurt Fernley actually spoke about the, and obviously we know Kurt is in a wheelchair, spoke about the chip bark, and he said there's nothing worse that's been, since he's had children, than someone else swinging his children with chip bark, because he can't get in there on a wheelchair to swing his children on a swing. So I think we really need to be mindful of, especially the swing areas. But yeah, he said, the other play areas, they go and do things themselves. He said, but the swing areas and the contact that he can do. So yes, I think we just need to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I agree. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks very much. Councillor Grady, I was going to leave my question until your report later on, but now that you've raised that particular point and relevant to the, I suppose, repealing this policy, is there an Australian standards in relation to shade over playgrounds now? Because I've read recently where a number of local governments are actually now starting to go on the journey of, trying to provide as much shade as possible within playgrounds, public playgrounds. So, is there an Australian standards?
I'd have to defer on that one and get medical knowledge whether there is a standard directly with respect to that. But I guess the standards in this place are continually changing, and that was what this policy was around, was trying to basically enshrine those principles in policy. But this is make sure that we do keep current with all those policies, and also our Capricorn guidelines that we have as well.
So repealing the policy in actual fact will be an opportunity, because if there are national standards that are developed and if other local governments are doing it, we can be part of that journey.
That,
Sounds great.
Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mark, I understand the intent of the officer's recommendation. With regards to replacement of playground equipment, I recall a scenario a little while ago where for certain playgrounds we would have some sort of consultation exercise with community around replacement of those assets, and then others that we don't, and it depends on the classification of the playground, whether or not it's a replacement of that asset or a different scenario. But the reality is, from a community perspective, there's no, they don't really understand the difference. So I think we need to be conscious of that. The policy as it stands sort of goes to the fact that that's mainly an operational matter, as you said. I think that we need to be conscious of how we approach those situations. Is that something that we can put in place through that operational matter, or is a policy going to help guide that?
I think we go through a lot of community engagement, and with respect to our asset replacements and our new asset investments as well. And one of them would be about making sure that the asset is fit for purpose and that we're putting in place. So I don't think it needs to be in the playground policy, but it's certainly, in terms of outworking that, we can make sure that we've got those engagement desires captured for that asset class as we replace.
Is it the case that when, because the policy also refers to setting the budget, perhaps we can go through those issues at budget time when we're allocating the funds for replacement? Is that something that we can implement there?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be happy to support that, Mr Mayor. I just again reiterate that, whether it's a park in 1770 or Boyne Island or Calliope, from a community's perspective, there's no sort of correlation to our hierarchy of park classifications. If one park's going to get a certain level of consultation, people sort of have that expectation. So if we can try and do that in a pragmatic way, then I think that'd be good. Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hanson, second to Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is G3.5, which is the monthly financial report for the period ending 30th of November 2022. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is your monthly financial report for the period ended 30th of November 22. So essentially taking us to around about 42% of the year to date. Probably not any new highlights to report. What I would highlight is, have had some increases in some of our revenue areas, but our overall revenue is showing at 33%. That's primarily because we've still got our water consumption revenue and the like to be recognised. And that'll happen in January and then again in July again, as we read those meters and bring those on board. Our expenses are tracking on task and on budget, and pretty much very much dead on that 42% mark. But certainly, I would have thought with some of those areas we might have had some slack, particularly in our employee areas. We've had a fairly high vacancy rate, and that was certainly over what we had anticipated. That we are tracking very much online overall, and that's probably because we're recognising that we do need to make sure that we continue to provide those services to the community that we've budgeted for. So even though our vacancy rate may be a little bit high, we've had to substitute in other areas to make sure that those services have continued. Our capital grants are very much aligned with our capital activity and are a little bit behind where we would like to be at this time. Our rates collection is sitting around about a percentage point ahead of where we were this time last year, so that's very pleasing to see at the end of November. But happy to take questions with respect to this report.
Thank you. Councillor Goodluck, question?
Thanks, Mark. Just one query on the capital expenditure water assets, 2.1 million. We're sitting at 101%, but the forecast is still 2.1 million. So we've just completed our capital works program.
We're going through a reallocation process with respect to that and looking through where we're spending those items.
So we're not expecting that 101% to increase, or that's...
I'd be interested to see where some of those works align. So I'm not sure the water projects that are going to come into that space, but it's one of the things we've completed our activities in that space. Because bear in mind, when we originally set those budgets, we've had around about $7 million of work come into the budget in terms of work that hadn't been completed from the previous financial year. We're just going through a process based on where we've are looking this year and tracking with some of the works that are heading behind schedule. So I'd expect that we'll see some movement in that $51 million figure to reflect current where we're going to end the year. I'd expect that $2.1 million figure will change and will probably increase. But the team is working through that. So I would hope that we'll be in a position in January to be including those updated figures for you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Branthwaite, then Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just continuing on from there, Mark, with the capital spend. I see the forecast on the graph on page 22 is for $51.4 million, and then down below that the paragraph indicates the capital spend would be about 58.6. Is that what you're referring to with the driving up from previous projects?
Yeah, so the 58.6 recognises that $7 million carry forward.
Right.
But what we're expecting is that there's likely to be, given the current economic conditions, particularly in terms of getting some materials for different projects and the like, is that we're just not going to be able to deliver on what we had originally planned as part of that 51 million.
Yeah.
But equally means that some of that $7 million that has essentially been carried forward into the current financial year, that's filled the gap, and we'll see some stuff push out. So what we're hoping is part of that forecast that will come through as part of the January statements, we'll see a revision of that figure. I don't expect it will be for the full 7 million. Because they're looking at, the team is looking at how we actually expect to finish the year. So I don't expect it's going to be 58, but it's not likely to be the 51 either.
Yeah, that explains it. Just
somewhere between the two.
You sort of looks at it and you think, well, what is going on here when there was that discussion?
And the other X factor in that is that we do have a significant flood damage estimates that are currently under assessments with Queensland Reconstruction Authority that's going to come into the pipeline as well.
Cool.
So we're working through that. So that's additional work that's likely to come in.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor O'Grady.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. This question's probably directed more at Tina's about staff, as our staff are our most valuable asset. And I know they have had a lot of pressure. I was just wondering whether they're being looked after with their mental health and just the pressures of doing work for two people, basically. Some of them, I know some of them are doing some different roles, so I'm just making sure that they're being looked after.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Yes, I think the support from the leaders are there, definitely, and they are close to the staff, and we provide the normal support to them as well, but I trust that the leaders are close, and we've got a good culture of having one-on-ones with our staff regularly and provide that support as well.
Thanks, Tina's, for that. Yeah, just that I know it's holiday time and whatever else, and hopefully they'll have a nice break, but going into the new year. So what's the forward projection with getting some more staff? We're trying other avenues, are we? Sorry.
I'm sorry. That's fine. That's a good question.
Thank you, Councillor, again for the question. We're trying different tactics now with our recruitment, and we've recently tried something like a video message from an outgoing staff member, and that's in the manager role in community development events, and we've added a higher level of response. So we are considering, it's more resource intense, but we are considering all avenues. Our recruitment team has been able to be more successful. We've increased the staffing of the team to be able to explore more options. We've seen our turnover coming down now, so it's dropped by almost a percentage point, which is positive. And we filled quite a number of roles in the last 2-3 months. So we're having more success in our recruitment at the moment.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any further questions for Mark or Tinas? Thanks, Tinas.
Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Seconder, please. Councillor Branthwaite. Any further questions? Put the motion. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is deputations. We have no deputations today, but we do have a council report, G5.1, Parks and Leisure Australian National Conference, and I'll hand over to Councillor Grady.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, this is a fantastic conference to go to. I'd love for some of our staff to go next time. But it was just amazing, actually, the amount of different people from all over the world actually there presenting. And like I said earlier, Kurt Fernley, he was keynote speaker, absolutely incredible what he spoke, and the endurance that he's been through in his life is just absolutely amazing. And, you know, it really woke up to me when thinking, I never thought about, you know, not putting chip bark, putting chip bark or the rubber matting. I thought, oh my gosh, until, yeah, he really hammered home about, you know, it's just so important. The other thing too, a few other things within the report I just want to pull out. Royal Lifesaving Australia actually spoke as well, and they were saying about, unfortunately, because of COVID, we're going to have like a 2 or 3 year gap of children that won't be able to swim because they haven't been able to have swimming lessons, and then he believes that's why the drowning rate is actually going up, because they haven't been taught to swim. So he said, you know, when the kids get, you know, 7 to sort of 9 age group and they go to school swimming or whatever else, they're hoping they'll be able to put some intensive swimming lessons in an 8-week block or something like that to try and help those children swim. So it was really interesting. I did put a link on here as well, but if you have a look at their website, they've got some amazing stuff on there. Kylie and Kim might be able to have a look at about the education for swimming and whatever else, and what we could do to support the learn to swim and whatever else. Also, there was Dogs on Leash about the policy and planning. I think we're leading the way in that, going through the report, so that was interesting. And the other interesting thing too was when they were looking at parks and building a park. So one thing was not only it's not a children's play park, it's now a integrated play park with so grandparents can actually climb on the things with the children. So because what's happening these days is the children are with the grandparents a lot of the time when the parents are working. So, you know, if there were stepping stones that the grandparents could step on, or, you know, whatever, and that's good for their health and their mental health as well. So having the aged in there. And also another interesting thing is about looking just beyond playgrounds. So with parkour, so looking at like doing a parkour section in a playground. So the kids that have got, you know, some health issues that want to climb walls and whatever, they can climb the walls and whatever while they're there, while their parents are still, you know, swinging, you know, bobbing on the swing or whatever else. And yeah, so it was really interesting. They had the guys from Parkour from Western Australia there. So I think, you know, at some stage we should reach out and just see what we can do. And Parkour is a growing sport. And yeah, it was just incredible. So, and there's some they've started the clubs, the parkour clubs too, which then use these parks. So, you know, they might train 2 or 3 times a week. So then that actually park's getting the use, and the mother can go, like I said, and with the other children as well. So, and then we went to the gala. I went to the Ward of Excellence, and the Phillip Street was in there. So we won the Queensland, and unfortunately we didn't win the national award, but it was fantastic. We're up against 4 other people in that category. So I have got that book for you, Mr. Mayor, and I've got some other information for whoever wants it as well. So no, it was a fantastic conference to go to, and I'd recommend for at least 1 or 2 of our staff to go next time. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grady. Question, Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Grady. It was a good report. There's quite a few interesting things in there. I think we should look at the opportunities for a parkour park, and we can lock in a demonstration video with Mayor Matt for its opening. So, but no, thank you. There was some interesting points in the report, but I'm assuming you're going to move the report, Councillor Grady. I'm happy to second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move Councillor O'Grady, seconded Councillor Goodluck. Report received. Councillor Churchill, question?
Just a brief question, just I suppose off where Councillor Goodluck's coming from. Is it likely that conference could, you know, be hosted here in the future as part of a national circulation of major conferences?
Thanks for asking the
Mayor
question.
Matt's
the last time
recording.
I went to this conference was in 2019, and I had the same thought, and I went and I said, oh, how can we get this conference in Gladstone? So I went around talking to people, and anyway, I found the right person to speak, and I said, how can we have this conference in Gladstone? And they said, oh, unfortunately, the national ones they have in capital cities, but maybe we could have the Queensland one in Gladstone. So I came back and I gave one of our officers all the information, and this year, this year. Yeah, so this year we actually had the Queensland conference in Gladstone, which was fantastic. So, you know, there is benefit from us to go and speak to people as well at conferences to see whether we can get the conferences in Gladstone. So.
That's terrific, Councillor Grady. Not like we did for the National Roads and Transport Congress by having it in Canberra every year, but anyway, it's another matter.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. I disagree with that recommendation, but happy to support the board's decision that it should be in Canberra so it doesn't lose money. That's a moved and seconded. The report be received, I believe. All in favour? Motion is carried. Is there any other councillor verbal reports before I move on to the next items? No, there's no urgent business, but we do have a notice of motion. Councillor Churchill, G7.1, application or disposal of lots 206 to 214 on CPU 7251 in Boyne Valley. Over to you, Councillor Churchill.
Thank you, Mayor Matt. The recommendation that I've got there is that by the 30th of June 2023, an options report be compiled and provided back to Gladstone Regional Council, considering how lots 2062. Oh, I thought I pressed the button. Sorry about that. All right, my recommendation on a notice of motion is by the 30th of June 2023, a report be compiled and provided back to Gladstone Regional Council, considering lots 206 to 214 on CPU 7251 situated in the Boyne Valley can be applied or disposed of for the benefit of the whole community. And I thank, through you, Madam CEO, thank the officers for helping me with that, in particular Rachel and Tanya. But just in relation to those parcels of land, my opinion is that doing nothing with what we've been doing recently is not an option, and any progress we can make will be progress for those parcels of land. I just believe that my learned colleagues will understand that my notice of motion is self-explanatory, and I'll give you some background perhaps to understand the need to support the motion. I understand that the original intentions in 2012 were for residential parcels of land, and appropriately there's been a long and extensive history to this, so I feel we need to find alternative options. I have some options, as I'm absolutely certain my learned colleagues around this table will, but I also believe that the community must have their say on this now in relation to those vacant parcels of land. And I'm sure that our community will have options as well. Can I make a suggestion at this stage that other local governments have done it quite successfully, and I do understand the constraints and the restraints and compliance with the Local Government Act, but I believe we also might need to go outside with some innovative and beneficial ideas, and if it means having to go to the Minister at some stage, then perhaps we might be able to ask or apply to the Minister to find another option for those, for the future use of those parcels of land. I remind everybody, and I'm sure that you're all well aware of the connect, innovate and diversify. So some aspects will be perhaps maybe to reconfigure the lots to be market appealing, or perhaps new migrant families or refugee families. Can also say perhaps young couples or young families who are wanting to get into the market. I do know from recent discussions that the seniors in the Boyne Valley are desperately wanting to stay in the Boyne Valley. There may also be perhaps another opportunity where, you know, with the development and the growth of the Boyne-Burnett Inland Rail Trail, that there might be some level of connectiveness, either economically, socially, or community benefits. There may be economic development opportunities attached to the successful Boyne Valley Discovery Centre. And I know in Councillor Muscat's absence today, Councillor Muscat's also been doing some research in the meantime since this notice of motion was on about some agro or agricultural type projects. But I'm sure each and every one of us as community leaders that you've probably got some ideas flowing already. And as I said before, doing nothing is not an option. Rather than going through the history of this from when it started in 2012, and I do believe that overnight or this morning that you've been provided with all the research that's gone back from the original decision back in 2012, 2013, when the decision was made, and I'll give it to you in just in points. It went to auction, unsuccessful 2014, again in 2017. So we haven't had success to be able to release them into the market or sell them into the market for what the original intentions might have been, which were quite admirable. And my email request dated November 2021, 12 months ago, requesting a status of these vacant lots, and it's still a live CSR as it stands at the moment, so thus my bringing it to you as a notice of motion as such. And I still believe in the motion, it's still allowing 6 months for an option report to be provided. And my final couple of comments, I suppose, as I said there before, doing nothing with them is definitely not an option, but what I became aware of recently was that the Queensland Country Women's Association in the Boyne Valley, and we thank them for what they do, they keep these blocks mowed regularly. And they do that as a service to the community based on the pride in the valley that they have, as we all have. So if we keep going in the same direction, or if we keep taking the same approach or take the same course of action, we'll probably get the same outcome if we put them into the market. So, as I said before, doing nothing today or tomorrow or the day after or the year after, I'm sure we will get the same outcome. Nothing, so that they'll lay there dormant. So really today my notice of motion is a call or a call for action to allocate these parcels of land or to dispose them for, as I've indicated in the motion, to the benefit of the whole community. And what even surprised me too, and I understand the requirements and the compliance under the Local Government Act, but you know, if I had a parcel of land for sale, I'd have a for sale sign on it. or expressions of interest. So we are seeing that happen with parcels of land around Clinton and other areas within the region where people are calling for expressions of interest. So maybe that could be a course of action, but I don't want to be presumptuous with that, because I think we have some smart people that could appropriately provide us with an options report. I'll leave it at that, colleagues, if you'd allow me a right of reply if there's any debate on it.
Can I have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Branthwaite, thank you. And Councillor Grady, you have a question?
Yes, Councillor Churchwood, would you be happy for amended motion?
I'm always happy to listen to what you have to say, Councillor Grady.
So, thank you. So, yeah, you are correct. Since the rail trail has been up and running out there, there has been 3 houses in Bullion sold and 2 blocks of land, and then also there's been some larger properties as well sold. So there's a fair bit happening out at Boyne Valley at the moment. So, but I would like to change the amendment, or just add, instead of just having those blocks at Yubobo, include Bullion and Naguran, because I know council do have a block of land at Naguran. I don't know whether in Bullion we have. So whether we can add the blocks of land in the Boyne Valley, not just those specific blocks of land. Because we do have, council do have blocks that I know of, and Mark might be able to support me in whether we've got, I don't know whether we've got blocks in Bullion, but I know for definitely for sure that we do have in Naguran.
Okay. Similar process we went through with the Naguran blocks of land to try to sell them, and well, I think the plan at the time, that was a long time ago now, was that people were meant to build on them, buy them and build on them. And unfortunately that didn't happen, so we've all got the same intention. The idea is to encourage people to live in the valley, but they're not selling. Councillor Churchill, are you happy with that amendment, or?
I'm happy to accept an amendment if it's if we got the details of the relevant parcels of land that we're making reference to. If it's Naguran and where else?
Bullion.
Oh, in Bullion. Yeah, well, I suppose if it's relevant to the Boyne Valley.
Three communities of the Boyne Valley.
And I hear where you're coming from, Mayor Matt, and I understand that was the original intention, was to sell the parcels of land, put them into the market, sell the parcels of land at a cost recovery. And I'm making reference explicitly to the Yubobo blocks, be it recovery of the $100,000, but we haven't recovered anything from them, not even from a rates perspective. So it may not necessarily be that we're wanting to put new families in there for residential. It may be other options. I don't know what those other options could be, but it might create some economic stimulus for the rest of the valley.
I just thought maybe we could have a fire sale.
Yeah. Well, I do see real estate agents, and I'm sure other questions will be forthcoming, but I do see real estate agents changing the market a bit too, rather than putting them for sale. They're actually calling for expressions of interest, which allows people to take some level of innovative approach as to what they might be able to use for with those parcels of land. But if you've got the details of those parcels of land, happy to include that in the amendment if you're seconding the motion.
Darryl, second.
Oh,
I've got
sorry,
a second of
Darryl.
the motion, but I'd just like to amend it to include the whole of the Boyne Valley blocks that council are owners of.
Well, I'll just try to Mark. He's got something to add, I think.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask that the resolution specifically asks for an options report to be undertaken. When we spoke in November last year about these blocks, we did provide the option that we would test the market first, and I think that maybe is still a good approach to understand if there is interest there. So to your point about inviting expressions of interest or putting back on the market for sale, we can engage a real estate to actually do that. And then if that fails, look for alternative uses. That may be a quicker way to understand what's happening with the market just now. Would you be okay if that was the approach we took?
Through you, Madam CEO, thank you for that, Mark. Look, I'm happy to, as I said before, doing nothing is not an option. So, any progress will be progress as such. In light of that, if you can do that operationally without me changing my original notice of motion, if you can do that already, if there's a way of doing that operationally to test the market, I'm happy to do that. But I'd still like to think that an options report could come back by June 2023, because I believe that the community need to be engaged in some level of ideas think tank exercise. And I also believe that our economic development specialist and our economic development group that work for the betterment of our Gladstone region may also have some good ideas. Yeah, not opposed to it.
Okay. Councillor Goodluck, you had a question?
Yeah, I understand the intent of the motion, and I'm not against it, but I guess I think we should test the market again. I think I recall under the Local Government Act, council is required under law to when we dispose of property to do so at a market valuation rate. Perhaps given the activity in the Boyne Valley area, we might see some interest. But again, even if the blocks of land sell, it becomes someone else's property. There's no guarantee for that community in the Boyne Valley area that the person who purchases the property will build on it. So from an options perspective from council, I guess I'm happy to look at. I'm not really sure what options would come through. Happy to look at that, but if we can't sell them, which we have tried to sell them, there wasn't any interest, so that should be the first.
Sorry, there hasn't been a for sale sign on those blocks for a long, long time.
Well, I guess.
And that's what triggers people to buy something. You can't sell a secret, sorry.
Well, that's fair enough. Perhaps we can touch base. I'm not sure when. It doesn't state in the report from memory when we leased it out through an agent to put the contract to sale on. That might have been a couple of years ago.
It was 2017.
After
2017.
After the auction, because they didn't sell at auction, then you're allowed to put them on the market. But I thought they were still on the market, even though they don't have a for sale sign. I figured that they were still on realestate.com, but maybe not.
Well, I'm probably glad we haven't been paying fees for 5 years to sell a block, but I think it's something that we can look at right now. Let's test the market again. But again, and in the current situation, even if we were to sell the blocks of land in the next month or two, the construction, supply shortages, trade shortages, we're still unlikely to see something be built for a long period of time. So as long as we're conscious of the realities of the situation, but I'm happy to support the motion. I was just getting clarification around what we were trying to achieve there.
Yeah, can I just go to Councillor Cameron, then I'll come back to you, and then Councillor Henson, but I'll come back to you next. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. In my experience, the best way to sell land is put a house on it. And that's what we've always done in all the development I've been involved in. A new development, no one wants to be first. So what we've always done, and I've done it with a group of maybe 3 or so builders, where we build a spec home each, which becomes your display home, and that generates the interest in the area. It dictates the style, size and value of the home you're going to put on the block. And that's the direction we've always taken. So if maybe you decided to develop one of these blocks and put a home on it and put it up for sale and display it, you get people walking through it, you generate that interest, and if you've got a local builder doing that, there's a block of land for sale next door, he can build you a house, this is the price we can do it for. That's the way we've always done it.
That's a great idea. It could come back in that options report.
Well, just putting it out there, that's where I link myself with developers and just followed their subdivisions around, and they were always nice to me with the price because I supported them. But that was the most effective way of moving a subdivision, put a house on it.
You'd know. Thanks. Sorry, Councillor Churchill, you wanted to add something? Then I'll go to you.
No, I just wanted to come back to, I agree with Councillor Goodluck and Councillor Cameron as well. I agree with the comments, but just in relation to that, local governments in other areas have actually released blocks of land for Peppercorn Mound into quite successfully. And I do know, going back through the research that Rachel was able to provide me with, is that understanding that originally was a cost recovery exercise. So if we continue to focus on a cost recovery exercise of the $100,000, and we thank the state government for allowing for allowing that to occur originally. We've spent $100,000 on those parcels of land. Maybe it's a different approach, as you're indicating, or as an option. Or alternatively, those that have been put into the market for a peppercorn amount, you can put covenants on the area, and that's effectively what's happened in some of those other regional areas within Queensland.
Is that a lease arrangement or a sale arrangement?
Sale arrangement.
We would need to seek.
Well, both.
We need to seek permission from the Minister to sell below market.
We understand it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanson.
Mr Mayor, mine's a question on process. I'm supporting the original motion, but I'm just questioning the amendment to the motion because...
I haven't put the amendment yet.
If we haven't put... Well, just my opinion on the amendment.
Okay.
I think that we've got a notice of motion on a number of parcels of land, and if there's any other properties that we can think of, it should be brought back to what's the meeting we called? A discussion group meeting to look at a way forward with those properties. I don't think it should be put in as a mix to this, because you could be talking about properties all over the place if you wanted to. I think we should be concentrating in this motion just on these parcels of land. That's my opinion.
Okay. Councillor Grady?
Well, because it's in the Boyne Valley and like they're only 5 kilometres apart, that's the reason why I've suggested, and I know that we do have blocks that have been sitting there for many years without any for sale signs on, and like I said, you can't sell a secret. So, and what makes people buy something? They see a for sale sign on the block. So that was the reason why, and I think if we're in the whole area, that's the reason why I wanted to, include them.
I'm not saying we should do nothing about those other properties. I think they should be brought back in the proper means rather than a notice of motion, included in this notice of motion, that's all. And then we can look at them in a proper way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted them included. So whether we include them out of CIS, do something out of CIS, I'm happy with that too.
That'd have to come to a council, maybe information session for information, but it would have to come to council meeting for a vote.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
To get more information on the blocks, because like I said, I know of one block, but I don't know of the others.
So help me with this, because I effectively don't want to become aggrieved on other parcels of land doing something with them, and not wanting to lose the original intention with those 9 blocks that currently sit there in Yabobo, but I'm prepared to accept, and I'd need to be guided by my advisors at this stage, that perhaps if you wanted to add after, for the benefit of the whole community, a small addendum that says, and other parcels of land within the region. But I wouldn't like to think that those original 9 blocks get caught up in a whole, because we've been there, and as I go back to my original email, which is still that live CSR from, I think, November 2021, I'd like to think that there is something that we do with respect to those 9 parcels of land.
Councillor Churchill, your motion, that's the one on the screen is not your motion, that's the amended one. There's your motion there.
Oh, right, my apologies.
Is it Wade?
Yeah.
Can you bring them so they're both on the screen at the same time? Thank you. So that's your council recommendation there. That one up the top is the amended. Yeah, which I haven't got a seconder for yet, so I might see if there's... Sorry? Can I get a seconder for the amendment? Well, I've got a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, and before we can discuss the amendment any further, I really need a seconder for the amendment. Okay, I'm going to second it from the chair, just so it doesn't lapse. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Beg your pardon? Jump in, absolutely.
Just in response to Councillor Churchill's question, as an officer, the more detail and specifics we have in a notice of motion, the easier it is for us to respond. I'm unsure about the volume of other parcels of land and the work that might be required. There is a risk it could affect the timelines if we broaden it too much at this point in time. So we're unsure of what that work might be. So it's totally at council's discretion if you wanted to start with this work, and we could have a look at those other blocks through the process and get an idea of what might be involved there. I guess the caution might be that it could derail us from moving as quickly on the whole approach if there are other blocks of land included, depending on tenure and historical records and all sorts of things. But it's totally at council's discretion. We do have limited resources, as councillors know, in our property team. We're trying to keep up to date with our leases and some of that work that keeps the recurrent work we're trying to improve our turnaround times with, but we will do whatever work council decides is a priority for us.
These blocks are costing us money because they're sitting there doing nothing. So I'm happy to go back to your original, and then if we can discuss it at CIS and bring it back to another meeting, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, so will you withdraw the amendment?
I'll withdraw the amendment.
Thank you. That's easy, withdrawn.
That's very honourable. I didn't want to lose the intent of the original motion as such, and I was hoping that, you know, Santa Claus might be able to come for those 9 blocks of land to be able to develop it, and perhaps there might be some learnings in that options report. It goes back to what Councillor Hanson's talking about, is that where do you draw a line in the sand and the amount of parcels of land that could be available. So there could be some learnings in this process with these 9 that have laid there for the past 10 years that might perhaps be of benefit to the other, or in process in relation to the other parcels of land.
Maybe we could do some sort of campaign to reinvigorate the valley. So, you know, it's something we could do down the track.
I think the Nagurin blocks have been there longer.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was about the time we built the skate park, which we should have called the Clyde Cameron Skate Park, because Clyde made it happen. That was the whole intention of those blocks of land in Nagurin as well, was to bring people to the valley. So I'll go to Councillor Cameron, then back to Councillor Goodluck.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Yeah, look, I was just going to suggest that we accept the original motion, as Councillor Churchill put, and spend that time to identify what other blocks of land may be out there that we're not aware of, and get all the detail of that and bring them to a separate meeting. And they may be in the future be able to add it to those 9 blocks as an incentive and a way of moving forward with it. That's all I was going to say.
And that report shouldn't be too hard, because it wasn't that long ago we did a report on what land council owns. So we do have it there somewhere, because we had blocks in Agnes and we had duplexes in Agnes as well, and there was a duplex or at least a unit in the city. I know that one of the former mayors would stay in often because they did live in town. So I don't know if we still own that either. Councillor Goodluck?
So just clarification, I'm coming on the journey, Councillor Churchill, but I'm a little bit unclear on what we're trying to achieve. Is it our intention to test the market in the short term, then I guess to Lisa or Mark?
Well, that's already been...
If I may, I was just going to clarify what Mark said before to make sure I'm on the same page, is that we could go to market and test the market fairly soon, see the results of that, and then come back with the options paper within the time frame. But they may all sell if we went through a process, and that would address the issue. But if not, we'll bring back with some options.
So, well, that raises more questions, I guess. Is the intention that we test the market and sell the blocks of land, or is Councillor Churchill's intention that we look at other options? And if so, I think, do you need to be more clear in the motion around what options that you're seeking consideration of? Because we've talked about several different options just here in the last 10 minutes, whether we build a house and a display home, or whether we sell to the private market, or whether we look at peppercorn sale, apply to the Minister for dispensation to be able to do that. And in the meantime, if we test the market and sell the properties, there's no need to do any of that. So I'm just do you want to be more clear around what it is that we're seeking, what outcomes we're seeking through this motion, Councillor Churchill? Otherwise, I'm happy to support the motion. The possibility is that we might test the market in January, the properties are sold by February, and
Wow,
motions are.
well, I tell you what, that'd be fantastic.
From what I
That'd be
hear,
a
it's
great
going
outcome.
gangbusters up there, mate. We've got
No,
people
we don't need Santa
riding rail
Claus,
trails
but,
and everything, so...
That'd be a great outcome, Councillor Goodall, as you've indicated, but as would be in an options report, there are so many options available. But as I said there right from the beginning, doing nothing is not an option. So if we're going to go out and test the market, well, we can test the market as such. But, gee, if they all 9 of them sell, well, that's great.
So is it your intention that if we test the market, so we put an expression of interest out, then we'd wait for a report to come back to council before we...
My notice of motion is to get a report by June 2023 in relation to those 9 specific parcels of land. If the 9 of them, and operationally, that I've been advised this morning, operationally, we can go out and put them back out in the market again, which, you know, for all of us, as we regularly go out there to the various events out there, and I went out to the CWA badge presentation, went and had a look at those parcels of land, we don't have a for sale sign on them. We don't have an expression of interest on them. We don't have anything, in actual fact, and probably the QCWA do a marvellous job, and the Discovery Centre effectively have become ex officio managers of those parcels of land, as I said earlier, because they have an utmost pride in that part of the valley and within the valley itself. So the time's arrived.
So can I just clarify, if we test the market, we're not waiting for, and we get an interest in a purchase of 1 or more of those properties, we're not waiting for a report to come back to council to consider the option of sale. You want them sold?
Councillor Goodluck, that would be a great outcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
because I wasn't clear on that. I wasn't sure if Margaret...
But the options report might come back and might only refer to the remaining 2.
That'd be good too. Councillor
That'd be good.
Cameron.
Yeah, just one point, be mindful that whatever you sell these blocks for could impact the valuations of existing properties in the area. So if you go too low, that could have a negative effect on the valuation of other properties.
Yeah.
Yes, if they're sold in that period, yes.
Okay. I think I've had enough debate on that. Any further comments or questions?
Under the current status quo, without a dispensation from the Minister, they're required to be sold at a market rate, market value.
All right, I have a mover in Councillor Churchill and a seconder in Councillor Branthwaite. That the recommendation, Office Council's recommendation be put. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. There's no confidential items, councillors. Before I wrap up, I just want to say it's been a bit of a rough end of the year, but it has been a good year overall in general anyway. So very sad way to end the year, but I hope everyone can have a very Merry Christmas, and we look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Declare the meeting closed at 10 o'clock. Cheers.